what players have the most to lose or gain from the outcome of these conference finals? I think Luka Doncic has the most to gain. So first of all, he's been in the league 6 years. He's been in the playoffs 4 times, been in the conference finals now twice in those 4 runs. In his career right now, averaging 31, 9, and 9 in the playoffs. Pretty good stuff, right? The things I'm about to say to you are all within the context of the first 6 years of careers, right?
Okay.
To reach multiple conference finals with no all-stars. Here's the list. Luka, LeBron, Jason Kidd, Hakeem Olajuwon. That's the complete list. To reach the conference finals averaging at least 30 points a game. Multiple conference finals averaging 30 points a game. Michael Jordan, LeBron, Kareem, Wilt. No player in NBA history has averaged at least 28, 8, and 8 through their first 4 playoff runs. Only player in NBA history to do that. And only LeBron and Allen Iverson have made the finals in their first 6 years with no other all-stars and averaging at least 28 a game. So Luka is about to enter a very select and posh group of NBA players.
That's a list.
And I say all that to say this. If he loses, I don't think it really matters in terms of we don't look at him much different. I don't think at this point in his career anyone's expecting a finals run. He's actually only had 1 playoff series where he has been at home.
Oh, wow.
So he's been a lower seed in every series but 1. So It's not like we're already expecting, championships out of Luka Doncic. But if he does make the finals, everything changes immediately.
Yeah, I completely agree with you because Luka is actually my pick as well for the most to gain. The one thing that I've always come back to is, can he get over the hump? This is his second time being to the to the Western Conference Finals. We know the stats. The stats are not the question. We know that Luka's a walking triple-double. Everyone on planet Earth knows that when Luka Doncic steps on a basketball court, flip a coin and he's probably going to hit, a triple-double. Luka, for him this year, the reason I think he has the most to gain is to validate what everybody has been saying about him. We all know that he's a prodigy. We all know that what his ceiling is. But until he starts actually winning and getting to finals and actually taking that next step and getting his team there, it's just stats.
And here's something to go along with that has Luka in a different position than everybody else right now. We give Anthony Edwards all the credit for where the Timberwolves are at right now, and that's true. But I think no one expected him to get to this place. So it's not like we're saying it's Anthony Edwards versus Luka. It's like it's the Timberwolves as a whole. Anthony Edwards has been the driving force. The Pacers, same thing. It's not like we're just saying it's Tyrese Halliburton. It's the Pacers have gotten here. Even the Celtics with Jayson Tatum, they're so good as a unit with so much talent. It's the Celtics have gotten here.
Correct.
It feels like it's Luka versus the Timberwolves. Like I know Kyrie is there and he's having an excellent season in postseason, but it doesn't have that. I'm not saying he's a footnote, but you almost kind of forget that he's a part of it. Like it just feels like this is all about Luka right now and what next step he can take to just keep adding to his already impressive resume here in 6 short years. We agree that Luka has the most to gain. And I believe we also agree that Jayson Tatum has the most to lose in these conference finals. Sort of like the Nuggets, this Boston team from day one was like, they're making the finals. Everyone and their mother was set like Boston and Denver NBA finals. When the playoffs started, we had some questions about the West, but it was like Boston has to come out of the East. So you already had these heavy expectations of championship or bust. And with how loaded the Celtics have been in the Tatum era in terms of talent, head coaching, not always run excellently, but have the right pieces in place to make these deep runs. If he falls up short against the Pacers, like what are we talking about?
Correct.
This is arguably, if not the best team he's been a part of in his whole tenure there. And they have dominated teams in a historic fashion, literally this regular season with their point differential. And it almost feels like if they lose, like even now when they're winning, it doesn't feel like it's on the back of Jayson Tatum, like we're saying with Luka. It's a collective effort. And we're not saying that Tatum hasn't been good.
Correct.
And you and I have had the discussion before about, is Jaylen Brown, the real Batman and Tatum's Robin? Now, that's not kind of where we're at now, but the conversation has been there. And if Boston loses this season, do we expect them to quickly bounce back to what they were already? What's Milwaukee going to look like when Giannis is healthy and if Dame decides to run it back? Jimmy was hurt this whole season. What's a good Miami team going to look like who's had their number for years? Are the Sixers going to make moves, and can we get a fully healthy season from Embiid? So it's not like Boston will be in the same position next season. He's also the only one right now who's been to a finals left in these playoffs.
Yep.
So there's just so much on him that if he loses, it would feel like what just happened? Like, what are you doing?
I'm going to dive a little deeper into Jayson Tatum here for you. I found some stats going back to is Jayson Tatum or is Jaylen Brown, who's the Batman when the team needs a Batman? So Jayson Tatum this season has been really good. He's 5-7 in his career in must-win elimination games. So that's either, they win and they move on, or they lose and they go home. So let's take a little deeper dive into Jayson Tatum's fourth quarter stats in his playoff career. Jayson Tatum in the fourth quarter just this season, let's look at just this season right now. He's 4-2-1. That's his playoff line. So 4 points, 2 rebounds, 1 assist.
I was about to ask if this is only the playoffs.
In the fourth quarter, just for the playoffs this season. Let's look at his career, okay? He's 5-1-1 in 103 playoff games in his career. Jaylen Brown is 4.9, 2-1 in the same amount of playoff games in his career. So is Jayson Tatum just not asking for the ball? Is he not dominating the ball? Is he not taking the ball when his team needs him and putting them on his back? Well, clearly it shows that Jaylen Brown is doing just as much in the fourth quarter as Jayson Tatum does in their careers. What does that mean for Jayson Tatum all time? Where does that rank him points per game in the fourth quarter? Behind Russell Westbrook and CJ McCollum. Both of them average more points in the fourth quarter in the playoffs than Jayson Tatum does. You and me have talked a lot about the potential of a rift between Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum in previous playoff losses when the Celtics have needed Jayson Tatum to step up, and it feels like Jaylen Brown has been kind of the Chris Middleton to the Giannis in previous playoff series that you and me have talked about. The Celtics have dumped piles of money into this roster to develop a roster where the Celtics are the obvious. I think you and me both picked it was either going to be them or Milwaukee at the beginning of the season to make it out of the East this year. When are we going to start looking at Jayson Tatum and saying, are you that guy? Just going to a few seasons ago where he had 14 points in a game 7 to close out. And then a couple seasons prior to that, he had 13 points in a game 7 to close out and lose. So you're right. I think he has the most to lose because everyone's starting to ask the question of, are you going to take that next step?
And it's funny because Jayson Tatum was like on the short list of like young guys who are going to win an MVP sooner than later. Like who's going to win the MVP next, right?
He's slowly falling on that list.
Jayson Tatum loses this round. If they don't make the finals, or even, well, I shouldn't say that, but if they lose in the conference finals this season, he can't be a top 6 guy.
Especially to the Pacers. They have nothing to lose.
Right.
Nobody expected the Pacers to be in this position.
And Boston
losing to this team would not be good. It would not be a good look for him.
And they've been so far ahead of everybody all season, especially in the East. Like I said, they've had the finals on lock since the season tip-off, it seems like.
And if it wasn't for the Pacers blowing that lead in game 1 in the last minute of the game there, and Jaylen Brown hitting an incredible corner 3 to tie the game, not Jayson Tatum hitting a shot to tie the game. Like it just all goes back to who's really the guy for them.
And like I said before about like the other teams that are going to be Eastern contenders, I mean, if any of those teams were in proper form right now, I think everyone would pick them to beat. Like, I don't think Boston has been looked at as legitimate world beaters. It's just been, well, who else is going to make it?
Exactly.
Maybe an Embiid situation where he can be so good but only get you so far. It takes a special kind of player to make that.
That's a great comparison. Push. I never thought about that. You're spitting right now. That's a great
Embiid is now the standard of MVP caliber players who can only get you so far. I think that is the new
Tony Romo of the NFL.
New style of player.
The Tony Romo.
Those are our thoughts on who we think is going to lose and gain the most from these conference finals. How do we do? What do you think of our answers? Did we get it right? Are we idiots? You tell us. let us know what questions you want us to answer and if we can expand on things like this in the future. But hope you enjoyed this. Listen to the sound. I listen to the sound.